What's up, FanboyNation? My name is Angelo Augustine, and we're here at San Diego Comic-Con 2019. I have the honor of being here with Tom Bilyeu. Sorry, did I pronounce that right? Perfect. I'm here with Tom Bilyeu, the founder of ImpactTheory, and Jim Krueger, Eisner Award winner, if I remember correctly, especially for Justice, if I remember correctly. So, Impact Theory, I had the honor of talking to you a little bit about it at WonderCon. Can you two talk a little bit about it yourselves? How did this come about and everything?
Yeah, for sure. So Impact Theory is my hope to impact the world at scale, to give them an empowering mindset. And I think the most impactful way to do that is through narrative. So we knew we wanted to be telling stories. The question was, what's the best way to do that? And because comic books they're a lot cheaper than film and TV, and they give you the ability to build community in a way literally no other medium does. And so that was really exciting, made it the no-brainer way for us to step into it, which is exactly how we met this guy here, who is just a genius in the world of comics, both the actual storytelling and just the structure of the industry. He knows everybody, and he lives, like when people say always be nice to people, that's this guy. So for like 25 years, he's just built an extraordinary reputation. So all the cool people that we know because of him.
So Jim, when he came on to you about a comic book story with influence from Steve Aoki, how did you react?
I was totally excited, but I was like, I only knew Steve from his music. Right. And what Tom brought on was this whole idea of this futuristic story, this whole the tension between people who are augmented by technology and those that are afraid to even consider that as a possible way of life. And it was like one of those sit downs where it was an hour and a half of just throwing out ideas where by the end of it I kind of walked away probably over-caffeinated, wondering what happened, what's going, where does this go now? And then he called the next day, and we talked about getting together again.
There you go.
More caffeine.
Sounds like you guys had been talking about this for a little while. Now, obviously, even not just in the comic itself, just in real life, there is that idea of, I don't want to use too much technology, I'm sending out too much personal information. What was the process of trying to integrate this into the comic?
So we really tried to look at what's real. Like, I wanted this to be flirting with science fact, and starting there, because the things that are happening technologically today are so extraordinary, most people wouldn't believe that they're real. And so we tried to stay in that realm of things that we think are really going to be issues. And so the story is set in a dystopian future. I'll call it dystopian light because the technology is not the bad guy in our story. It is sort of human frailty, fear that is creating this trough of despair, which is a real thing that we go through whenever there's radical change. And so I think we're actually going to experience this. And so what we wanted to do was really look at where is society going, what are real issues that we're going to face. And when you think about Neuralink, which is Elon Musk's company, a guy named Brian Johnson has a company called Kernel, which are both brain-computer interface companies. Like, those are real right now today. People are actually developing that technology. Right now today, there are people that can control an exoskeleton with thought. Like, that's so bananas. So it's like we wanted to stay in that realm, and so that really influenced our thinking.
Jim, now have you had any experience how experienced are you with technology, trying to incorporate it into the comic from what you've written before with this one?
Well, I think that my iPhone right now makes me a walking, talking cyborg as it is,
Right.
So, but, I learn stuff every single day, and I'm definitely not a quick learner, but what I bring to this, like Tom and Steve, they bring such a sense of what technology is doing right now and what it's going to become like the day after tomorrow. And
they kind of help guided you through that a little
and
bit.
then I go in and I'm like, oh, but this is the story about a guy, and if he does this, then there will be this consequence. So as much as this is about techno optimism and the future and the fear of change that goes into this, it's also just a story about a guy that never expected that he would have to change.
Right. So speaking of the guy, Clay Campbell, right off the bat, he's dead. We're just here, like, he's already dead. And then we have, if I pronounce it right, Kita, if I remember. Yeah. I can't remember the last name to save my life. Sovi. Kita saves him, Sovi. Thank you. Kita Sovi saves him. I really enjoyed the first chapter. Just trying to get everyone in. We get the main characters. D so far is my favorite one, based on all of them. I really love D.
Like her, man. Wait till you see her.
Yes. second chapter to me is what really puts this is what the story is about, especially with the emotions that Clay Campbell is going through. Now, I don't think a lot of people think they're going to combine technology with emotions, especially to control your mind with the emotions, just as you're talking about. So what was the thought process in combining these two?
Well, again, like this is already happening. And so the fascinating thing to me about artificial intelligence is you have to give artificial intelligence a motivation. And so there's a guy named, I think, Brian Brostrom, if I remember right, who wrote a book about super intelligence. And one of the things he said is, like, let's say that you created this ultra efficient AI that was self-replicating and you gave it the imperative to create paper clips. Like, you can really get yourself into trouble if you give it the what we would call an emotional impulse, a drive to create paper clips. It could be like, the atoms in your body would be better used as atoms in a paper clip because that's what I'm incentivized to do. And so when you think about human emotion is nature's way of incentivizing you to do things. So we are essentially nature's ultimate artificial intelligence. And so looking at it from that perspective, like, just because you have a neural link in your brain doesn't mean that you don't need these incentives. It's the only way to move through the world. And when people are brain damaged in a particular way, they find it like they're normal in every way, dude. Normal in every way, imagine it. But they've had damage to an area of their brain that controls their emotion. And once their emotion is gone, they can't make decisions. Now, you would think, why do you need emotions to make a decision? Because you feel some kind of way about whether you have chicken or fish, right? And so you'll be talking, like, imagine you're talking to me and everything, it's all normal. And then you're like, hey, Tom, where do you want to have lunch? And I'm like, yo, I literally don't know. And so you're like, well, we can go to Carl's Jr., we can go get some of that, or we can go sit down and have some steak. What do you prefer? And I am incapable of making that answer. So that is a real life example. So you're talking about like these fundamental drivers that have to be. So when we're creating this world, we want to stay in that realm of things that people be like, I get that.
Now, I think one of my favorite lines that was written in the comics, I want to say it's chapter 3 or 4, where each and one of us is a combination of who we were in the past, the present, and who we're about to become. Where did that come from?
Real life. So that is the truth. And so one thing that Jim and I and Steve and everybody that's been involved with the book, we've really tried, and I will say that Jim is maybe one of the most extraordinary people at doing this. You cannot get lost in the sci-fi. You've got to bring it down. He was just saying that you've got to bring it down to the people. You've got to remember it's about the people. And so as we're like trying to think, like, what are those moments? You've got a character like Kita Sovi who is our Mr. Miyagi or our Morpheus, you know what I mean, who has that role of having this wisdom that they bring. You want to make sure the wisdom is actually real. And so part of what made The Matrix so influential on my life is if you listen to Morpheus, his advice is real. Like Yoda, his advice is real. If you take Yoda's advice, your life will be better. And so we wanted Kita's advice to be like that if you take his advice, your life will actually be better. And since that is such a true statement, that we really are this combination of your past, it's wildly influential. It's helping to create who you are. Who you are today is how you process everything, but who you can become is also a part of this equation. And so it's like your potential, what do the past and the present have to say? Like, how are they coming together to make sure your future is actually interesting?
Oh.
There's just this idea, like common in or common in all great stories. Like, we have so many great stories we can look back upon. The who you were has to somehow meet the who you could be. Like, it has to, and then it's like, where will you go? And so, like, that's just, that's one of the great things about having a place like the Neon Garden, the Neon Future, where they can go and you can almost like begin to even speculate on how we're going to change, if we're going to change.
Yeah, so I know there's always that talk like, oh, let go of the past and this kind of thing, but instead of letting go, you guys are kind of suggesting accept it, be a part, it's a part of who you are, don't disregard it and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, you have to embrace all the bad with the good.
And I think reframing is a big thing as well. So like how you think of your past will deeply influence who you are now. You can't change the past, but you can certainly change how you think about it. You can change how you feel about it for sure.
Definitely. I think as, a scene that really popped in my head when you say that is that he's trying to control his powers, he's having some difficulty, but a point where he really showed the power of the technology he got was when he started accepting when he was about to die and that kind of thing. So what was the thought process in creating that scene specifically?
So getting into how do we have a character that when you're reading about this person, it becomes useful in your real life. One thing that we always try to do when we're writing is like, okay, you're in this moment, like what would it actually be like? And sometimes it's shocking, sometimes it's surprising, but once a character has agency and they have like real thoughts and feelings, which is how it feels, like when you're writing it, it's like, but that's not real for that character, or oh my god, like yes, like you feel like you're channeling that character. So it was like, I think that's how he would really react in that situation.
Any words, Jim?
No, only that, whenever you write, like there are lots of big characters in this project, and they all have to be different, but they all have to speak something about what it's like to be human, what it's like to face a future and be afraid of the next step, but to take the steps anyhow. So it's all like almost grabbing different aspects of yourself and letting those aspects move forward to become different characters. So
I completely agree with that.
Oh, thanks.
I completely agree with that. Sorry, I do have a monotone voice at times, so please excuse me that. Now, going off topic a little bit from the comics, you're at Comic-Con. What do we have that's going to be special that we're offering to the attendees?
Well, we have some exclusives. We have one that we made, I think, 100 copies of, and then an ultra rare version that we only made 25 copies of, which I'm super excited about. They're created by a guy named Maciek Kusiera, who I believe is one of the most talented artists on the planet. Like, this guy is unreal. He's so good. So he did for the movie Ghost in the Shell, he did a lot of the concept art for that. He was so influential that in the movie they actually put his name as the name of one of the hotels they go into. And you literally see them walk into this big sign that says Maciek. So like, this guy is just unbelievably talented, and we happen to have somebody on staff that like followed him socially or something, and he just reached out to him and was like, hey man, we think you're amazing, we'd love to have you come in and meet and just talk. We ended up working together. He did some key art for us. He didn't do this poster, but we have another one that's even bigger that he designed from top to bottom, just absolutely stunning art. So he did a few covers for us, and two of them we have a color version and a black and white version.
So I know.
Plus, if they come to the booth, they'll get a free copy of the first issue signed.
True.
It's first printings, first issue. It's sold out everywhere, so this is the only place to get it.
This is the only one that's left.
And the price is right.
There you go. And if I read correctly, are you two going to be signing the books for the fans also?
Yes, very much so.
Very nice. So Jim, with writing the stories and for the series and everything, is there an issue or a specific issue or a specific scene in the comics that if you had to pick one, you really wanted the fans to pay attention to or really read?
There's a point at there are points in Clay's life. And so there's something that happens. There's something that happened, and this is already out. There's something that happened in issue 3 where I was like, this has to happen. And I feel like and there's something in 6 that's so vital. It's like there's this thing like called the tyranny of story, or that's what I call it. It's like when you set up a scenario with this character here, something has to happen. And so all of creating story, all of writing story is when you set up that this is going to happen, or it's getting us to that point. And so what I want fans to see is not only the structure of how we do it, but this is a story about a guy who doesn't want to change, died to a degree, and then still has to change afterwards. And so that creates lots of drama.
Especially if you don't want to change or if you want to stay who you are, even if that's no longer possible.
Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. Chapter 5, I know just released yesterday. I haven't had a chance to read it, but the character on this variant is it Ez or Easy?
Easy.
Easy.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is his best friend. What can fans expect with this recently released issue?
So this is one of my favorites. So the cool part about this is we get into the Neon Garden, which is Kita's digital world that he creates and invites people in, has been hacked. And so I just got the chills. So it's like it's so interesting to me. You know, he's created this sort of dreamland. It's meant to be like the future that he's trying to bring into reality, but you realize the fragility of that and then how dangerous it becomes to go into that world now. And so we get, guys, like spoiler alert, I don't want to give too much away, but seeing both Kita and Clay have to go in and deal with the encryption, the hack, and how they each deal with it differently and what it means. We have some really cool moments for both of them, which then the tyranny of story, but it's a beautiful thing. It pays off, I think, so exquisitely in issue 6 and really brings the arc nicely closed, but with one sort of cliffhangery moment that'll bring you into the next 6. Yeah, I'm just really, really happy with where the tyranny of story led us in 5 and 6 is very exciting.
And you know, even for Easy's character, Easy's just awesome because Clay had change forced upon him. And Easy, being Clay's former friend, doesn't have to change. He just doesn't. And so that makes him like this really interesting character who's both hunting down Clay, but his former friend and
Yeah, some conflict
all
going
the
on.
there's conflict. It's internal, and it's really external too,
Right.
which makes it the best kind of conflict.
I've always seen Easy as our Javert, if you know Les Miserables.
Unfortunately not.
Oh man,
You know, it's something I need to check out.
Such a great story. If you're not into musicals, don't bother. But and I guess it's a book, so people right now are cringing at home that I refer to it as
but
musical.
you know, Neon Future the musical
Nice.
sounds pretty
I'm in.
awesome.
I'm ready.
I think we found our next destination.
Yes, yeah.
Huh,
So
who
it'll-
could we get to write the music?
right? I can't
don't-
imagine.
Someone that resembles this guy, maybe.
That's a good place to start. Yeah.
Maybe. So, last question of the day I wanted to ask was, and now it's completely slipping on my hand. Now I remember. 6th issue is next month, the final issue, with the completion of Arc 1. Oh, okay. That's I didn't get that last time. You didn't tell me it was Arc. I thought it was just the whole
Well,
series.
it was going to be, but it sold so much better than we expected that we've greenlit 6 more.
Okay, so rechanging my question, with the end of Arc 1 coming down, what do you, for each of you specifically, what do you hope fans get out of it, out of this specific arc?
So for me, Arc 1 is, I want people to understand if you take responsibility for your life, what you can accomplish is absolutely extraordinary.
And I just want people to think it was cool.
I love it.
You know?
I think that's a great
You know,
way
it's
to
a
end
comic book. It's got to be cool.
It's
It's
gotta
got to be fun.
it. It's the only way our people are going to keep on reading it.
Truth.
Yeah.
Truth.
Okay, I really appreciate the time, you guys. It was really great to talk to both of you.
Definitely, man. Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you, Tom.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Jen.
Excellent. Thank you.
I appreciate it.